This is the new generation Isuzu MU-X. It's based on the D-Max. It's a 7-seater SUV wagon, and it has had the biggest change in its history thus far. It's got an updated engine, it's got plenty of safety tech, and it's got plenty of driver assist gear. And now the MU-X can tow 3.5 tonnes, so it tops the class in terms of load hauling. But that's on paper at least. But do those things justify the massive price rise that it has experienced this time around? I don't know. That's what we're here to find out, so stick around. Now there's going to be a ton of details about this vehicle in this review, but if you want to skip to something in particular, there are time codes on your screen now. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, there are chapter markers below. And another thing, before we get stuck into this review, if you're watching this video on YouTube, make sure you hit like, share it with your mates, and make sure you hit subscribe and tap that bell icon to stay up to date with all of our content. Our test vehicle is the LSU. It's the mid-spec MU-X. It is available in 4x2, but we are driving the 4x4 variant. Standard features include 9-inch touchscreen multimedia unit, and that has sat-nav, Android Auto wired and wireless Apple CarPlay, 18-inch alloy wheels, LED headlights with daytime running lights, front and rear parking sensors, and a reversing camera. All MU-X variants get Isuzu's full active suite of driver assist tech from Standard, and that includes AEB, forward collision warning, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, and blind spot monitoring. The LSU 4x4 variant has a price tag of $59,900, that's before on-road costs, but our test vehicle is a little bit pricier than that. For details, look on screen now. As mentioned, brake towing capacity has increased from 3 tonnes to 3.5 tonnes, but more about that later. We'll put all of the MU-X's dimensions up on screen now, but if you're after the nitty-gritty details, that specs and everything else, make sure you read my full yarn on the Cars Guide website. In terms of design, now the styling is pretty much standard for a contemporary SUV. I'm not going to stand here and harp on about space-age lines and that sort of thing. You make up your own mind whether you like it or not. The third row is really for kids only or adults for brief road trips. You certainly wouldn't catch me in there. Passengers back there get cup holders and air vents. Here in the second row of the MU-X, it's kind of a pretty good example of what's going on in the rest of the interior. It is comfortable, but it is pretty basic. The seats are a durable hardware and cloth. There are hard plastic surfaces everywhere, but you get a lot of handy little bits and pieces. You get 2 charge points here for USBs, a little cargo hook for your shopping bags, and you get the pop-down armrest in the middle here, which is kind of standard with this size wagon, and that's got 2 cup holders in. But it's all pretty clean, all pretty neat and tidy, but pretty basic. I'd be expecting a little bit more for my money, but having said that, you do get air vents for your second row passengers, lights, controls of the fan, that sort of things. So they're well catered for. Hopefully you won't get too much whinging from those back here. Up front though, the interior gets a bit of a spit and polish. You get a leather wrapped steering wheel and shifter, a nice dashboard expanse up there. Beyond that, there are the usual things. You get cup holders here, you get these nifty pop-out cup holders, bit of storage space, shallow glove box there, deeper one there. You get a spot here for your wallet and phone and other sort of various knickknacks, a USB point and a power socket. You've got steering wheel mounted controls. Everything is pretty neat and tidy and kind of familiar because it's all very much a D-Max style layout. The new MU-X has the engine from the latest D-Max, and that's the 3-litre 4-cylinder turbo diesel. It produces 140 kilowatts and 450 newton meters, and that's pretty standard for something that you're going to use as a medium duty off-roader. On road, the MU-X is generally okay. It's nice enough to drive without being extra special. Steering has a nice weight to it, and that's in low and high speed scenarios, and the steering wheel is reach and rake adjustable, so you can get it right where you want it. There is plenty of visibility towards the back. It gets a little bit pinched, but that's a pretty much standard thing for four-wheel drive wagons. The 3-litre turbo diesel engine and the 6-speed automatic transmission are a better fit in the D-Max. Well, that's what I reckon anyway. They just seem to be a bit of a smoother pairing in that unit. Ride and handling are also generally okay. There is a little bit of a floaty, sort of wishy-washy feel about it all the time, but that's something you come to expect from a four-wheel drive wagon. It's not a sports car after all. Throttle response and off-the-mark acceleration and when overtaking are more relaxed than rowdy, but that's fine and to be expected. There is some diesel engine clatter as a soundtrack, and overall the MU-X lacks a real smooth refinement to it, and whereas I could forgive it in the past for those things, it was substantially cheaper then, but it's not anymore. So I have to really tick it down for just not being as modern and as quiet as some of its rivals. The good news is, while the MU-X may not be as refined as some of its rivals on road, it hasn't lost a step in terms of capability when you get off-road. It is comfortable, it is really rather competent when it comes to low-range four-wheel driving, and you have plenty of things in its off-road armoury to choose from. That 3-litre engine delivers plenty of low down torque, and that's handy when you're low range four-wheel driving. It's got a rear diff lock, it's got a tweaked off-road traction control system which is low key and quite effective. Ride comfort even off-road is generally okay. You can feel a few of the sharper lumps and bumps on light corrugations when you get out bush, but it's not terrible. That chassis is pretty stiff, it's stronger and lighter than before, and if you run the tyre pressures just down a tiny bit under the recommendations on the placards, that takes the sting out of those bumps just a touch. And speaking of tyres, as well as dropping those pressures for the low speed, low range four-wheel driving, I'd actually swap them out, because the rubber on this new MU-X, it's suited to roads, it's not suited to dirt tracks and the rougher stuff that you're going to encounter if you're going to use your vehicle as an off-road tourer. But that's an easy fix, because you just replace it with some decent all-terrain tyres. You might also want to think about a mild lift. You don't have to go over the top, but if you're going to use this as your camping adventure machine, I'd think about giving it just a bit of a boost up, a tiny bit, just to raise you off the deck. But having said that, ground clearance on a standard MU-X is pretty decent, and wading depth, I think it's about 800 mils or so, is okay for a four-wheel drive wagon. And approach, departure and ramp over angles are pretty standard for this kind of, citified sort of SUV wagon, but they are good with a bit of considered driving. There's no reason why you can't get to even some of your more gnarlier adventure spots. The 500 kilogram increase in brake towing capacity from 3 tonnes to 3.5 tonnes is another boost for the new MU-X's touring cred. Rest assured, we'll test the MU-X's real-world towing capabilities in an upcoming review, so keep an eye on the Cars Guide website and our YouTube channel for that. The new MU-X has the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating, and Isuzu really does deserve credit here for throwing a full complement of driver assist and safety tech into this vehicle. As standard, it gets 8 airbags, including curtain airbags that protect all 3 rows, and a stack of gear including AEB rear cross traffic alert, blind spot monitoring, lane departure warning, lane keep assist and more. In terms of safety, the new MU-X has a real clear advantage over its immediate rivals. Official fuel consumption is 8.3 litres per 100 kilometres, and that's on a combined cycle. Our actual fuel consumption during this test was 9.8 litres per 100 kilometres, which was pretty good because we did clock up a fair bit of low-range four-wheel driving. The MU-X has an 80 litre fuel tank, which means if you drive like me, you should get an effective range of about 820 kilometres when doing a mix of road and dirt tracks, with low-range four-wheel driving thrown in for good measure. That range grows to 960 kilometres or so if you can get your fuel use closer to that official fuel consumption figure. The MU-X has a 6-year 150,000 kilometre warranty with up to 7 years roadside assistance and 7 years cap price servicing available. That's pretty good in terms of years and adequate if you're not covering huge distances, but some rivals have unlimited kilometres. Service intervals are nicely spaced, scheduled for every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, and costs start at $389 for your first service and top out at $749 for your second last service, and that's under warranty. Cap price servicing works out to be pretty easy on the wallet, costing a total of $3,373 over 7 years. This new MU-X makes a decent enough proposition as a family-friendly 7-seater SUV. It has plenty of new tech on board and it drives pretty well too, but this whole upgrade feels rather underdone to me, especially considering that price hike. But perhaps Isuzu has something else in the pipeline. Until then, I reckon the Isuzu faithful will be pretty happy with this. But what do you reckon? Is the new MU-X your cup of tea? Have your say in the comments section below.